even though I operationalized myself and used myself as the guinea pig in the original days, I mean, I was a door knocking and open house queen. I door knocked for 3 years straight, 3 days a week, 100 doors a day, 300 doors a week for 3 years straight. And I did open houses every weekend for 3 years straight.
Hey, Jack Lehr here at the Lehr Podcast. I have an amazing guest with me today. I got to meet her at an event in Dallas, a Tom Ferry event. And guess what? She didn't even want me to enter the room because she was doing an operations mastermind. And I'm not in operations. Sarah Kane, our director of operations, was there. And she was invited. I was invited to go down to a podcast with Tom Ferry. But Tom said, get the blank in the door there and go into that mastermind. She was kind of like a little bit pissed off that I entered the door, but she soon came to like embrace me. And it became an incredible conversation. It really helped me understand about operations. And I'm here to introduce you to Yvonne Arnold. Yvonne, welcome.
I love it. I was wondering if we were ever going to discuss that meeting of us, how we met.
Well, I mean, like you weren't that pleased to see me walk in that room, right?
I was not pleased because, you know, it's funny. I'm very protective of operations people because they're the unsung heroes in our industry. And the team leaders always get all the accolades. They get the podcast, they're on stage, you know, and that was for them. And I made it very clear, no team leads in the room, right? And here comes Jack. And then because you're not a shy guy like me, we're not shy people, you know, it was like Jack started talking. I'm like, excuse me, isn't this your operations manager? And Sarah's sitting next to me. So I said, we got off to an interesting start, but I think it was love at first sight.
Yeah, I think it actually turned, oh my gosh, you're killing me here. I love it. But Yvonne, like during that meeting, like, it was really nice for me to understand how, like, because you're the operations guru. Like everybody out there needs to understand that, like Yvonne Arnold in the Tom Ferry world, operations guru, like incredible high producing agent out in California. What part of California?
Southern Cal, born and raised, Riverside County. Corona Riverside was our main primary real estate market. Okay. And then now we go between here and or California and here, which is Sandpoint, Idaho, North Idaho. Nice.
But so Yvonne's like super protective of this, and it's this room, it's filled with all the operations folks, and they're a little different than, you know,
they're very
the producers,
junior,
right?
they're they're the opposite personality of their team leaders usually, at 99% of the time. And they're very conservative, they're quiet, they're thinkers. It takes them longer to open up, you know, and so when you have them team leads and high producing performers in real estate tend to be antsy when there's a quietness in the room. They want to fill that quiet with sound, right? so they'll talk more, where the analytical operator is thinking about how they're going to address what they're going to approach and then the next conversation. So I love that. And I go between those two things. I'm very extroverted, but I'm an extroverted introvert. And so I'm good being quiet too, sometimes.
Yeah, kind of sometimes. You know, you did a great job. And I think the dynamics were pretty interesting in that room, like, because there was definitely some stuff going back and forth between Yvonne and Jack. And then at the end of the event, I just remember giving like a lot of love towards operations. And I think that's where like maybe the relationship and the bond kind of happened. At least I felt it from you.
Yeah, no, it was great. And what's interesting is you probably, because you were there early and I know you had like crazy travel, like things happening. Straight. The weather was awful that week. So getting into Texas was really hard. But what we saw was that day they started opening up, and then the conversation started happening and they connected with people, and there was a lot of takeaways for them. And then when I zoomed in, Justin Benson and, they really geeked out on stuff, so that was what was fun. Gave them a space, and now I've created just a monthly mastermind with a lot of great minds, and it's been fun to see who they are and have them start connecting.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. And I've dropped in on a couple of them just in the very beginning, because you invited Sarah 𝐭, our director of operations, to be a part of that. And learning from Yvonne has been a true blessing to our team. And you've been so helpful. So thank you so much for all that.
You're welcome.
All right.
My pleasure.
So Yvonne, you're out producing out there, and you're building your were you a broker? Are you a broker?
So my husband's a broker in both California and Idaho now.
Okay.
But back in the day, we were not. And so I started in the industry really early. So I started in escrow right out of high school.
Okay.
And then I became a title rep, and was a title rep for 12 years in California. The reps that sell. And then I got my license in 1989, tried real estate for a bit. Market crashed in California with the aerospace industry in 1990 to 91.
Okay.
And so went back to title. And then in 92, said, oh, I'm going to go back into real estate. And because I'd met my husband, he was my client. I was the title rep and he was the realtor. And so went to work with him in 1994. And so at 94, California was in the middle of the aerospace crash. So everywhere else in the country was going fine, but we were in a bad economy. And so houses had dropped $200,000. And back then, a high-end house in our market was like 300,000, and it went to 150. So that was the first crash that I had experienced. I left a great paying job to go work in a crash real estate market. So go figure. Yeah. And then from that point forward, just my mother-in-law and father-in-law were the owners of the brokerage. And through the years, John and I, we dabbled with whether or not we wanted to do broker ownership. And every single time the road did not lead there. And so we were a family business, handled a couple of hundred transactions a year during certain markets.
Okay.
And we flowed with how the market went. So that was kind of our secret sauce. We never lost anything during any crash or bump. But we never got like giant during the hot markets. We just stayed right here. Yeah. And that's my theory is you don't have to be giant as an agent to create wealth. And now coaching Kay Fairchild, who, I love her. She was my first coach. And she came in 2007 when we knew the market was shifting in California. We could feel it. And so I hired her. And at that time, our team had dispersed. So it was like my husband was developing property, my mother-in-law had semi-retired, and it was just me. And then so what Kay helped us do was build back the team for another 150 deals a year during the crash. And wow. And then from that point, she said, do you want to be a coach? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I went in kind of kicking and screaming. I was not the coach that went in and said, I want to be this coach. And so I just said, okay. And I kind of went in and out for the first couple of years. And because it was hard. 2009 to coach a realtor, they were losing their houses. Yeah. They couldn't pay their bills, much less pay their coaching bill. And so coaching agents to get up in the morning during that kind of market was tough. So, and maybe it made me better. I don't know. So that's kind of my story. And then I've been doing it for 14 years now. So,
and again, you mentioned Kay Fairchild. She's actually my coach. And yes. So she was your original coach.
Yeah.
And that was the time that you said, you know what, I'm going to hire somebody to help me. Okay. And I think that's one of the things I want to share with people that are watching this podcast here today is that I have a lot of real estate friends and people in my world that they don't go to someone to get help. They rely on they do it on their own. And sometimes that's very difficult. So just think about a T-ball, like a T-ball baseball player. So they're 5 and 6 years of age. And if you just say, hey, go out there and play, they're going to probably have some fun, but they're probably going to make a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
And that's why they get a coach. So you get a coach and it helps you develop and put together. So as we move forward here, like what you're doing, systems, processes, and going to the next level. And that's what I want to talk about here right now is that having a coach to help you through those things when it becomes very difficult. And also as you're growing, because sometimes we're growing and then we're like, oh my gosh, like how can I sustain this? How can I stay here?
Right.
And they get scared and now they have somebody on their side. So talk a little bit about how you help people in your in coaching.
So it's really interesting. People go, why do you coach? And I say, well, it's not for the money. That's one thing. Okay. So, but one of the things that I started really leaning into when I started becoming a coach was, I've been around the industry for so long that I literally was watching people die broke, like they were dying broke. And that should never happen in real estate. If you're a real estate agent, there is absolutely zero reason why you should ever die broke. Okay. Because you are able to make as much as you need and can. Then I started learning that people have that happen to them because they're not coachable. And they don't ask the right questions. They're not committed. And so that's a real struggle in the coaching world. When you're helping somebody, you want to help them. You see their potential, right? That word is very dangerous, that potential word.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're a past athlete. I've heard you talk many times. So in the sports world, if you have somebody that just says they want the stardom, but they don't want to do the work, you're probably never going to see them on television, right? In the sports world. And so it's a really interesting thing when you coach somebody. When they come to us now, we can see if there's somebody that's going to be coachable. They come to the calls and they are like engaged. They're not in their car, they are engaged in what you're going to discuss that day. They've sent you an email or something that says, Coach, this is what I need to talk about today. And they come with something. So when I started coaching and Kay was my coach, I was already a producing agent. I was already successful at it for many years. But what I knew was that going into the next phase of a transition of a market, I knew I needed some backup. And so what that coaching session did for me once a week for 30 minutes, first off, I strategically planned my coaching call at 7:45 a.m. Pacific time. So I had to be at my office by 7:30 and ready for my call.
So discipline is a big part of this as well. Yep. Huge.
And that year, Kay took me from, I was making about, $150,000, $200,000 a year in real estate. She helped me add another $100,000 to that year. Okay. And at the same time, work through the transition, build the team back up so that by 2008, when the real crash had really happened, we were prepped and ready to go. So when the REOs started coming in, because we were in the systems from the 90s, we could just rock and roll. So we were ready for the shift. So, and that's what a coach does for you. A coach helps you set up the future. They future pace what you need. And so then what happened with me is we went paperless in 2009 because our broker said, you're not going to get your commission check unless you send everything in through our paperless system.
Okay.
So we were early adopters of that. So with that, I started getting into all these startup companies, and like all these tech companies were getting noticed at, the expos and the NAR convention and car convention and all this stuff. So I just started picking up on stuff. And I just remember the day I went, 2011, I had all of these whiteboards up and I had all these companies on there, and I just went, keeping that, circle it, not keeping that, cross it off. And then I dove deep into what the products really did for us. And my whole goal was, I don't want to be full-time in Southern California. I want to go enjoy my happy place in Northern Idaho. So I had to figure out, how can I do business and make money in two places? And so being in two places, and I really didn't want to do a lot of real estate in North Idaho. It was keeping my 20-year business going, now 30-plus-year business going in Southern Cal. And that's how I became a systems and processes coach, because you had to operationalize it. So that's the deal.
and that's how you did it. So so you take that experience, and then plus being in the Tom Ferry world, you get exposed to a lot of
exposure is king, Jack. I mean, I can't thank Tom enough for the look at what I'm doing here today. I mean, he has exposed me of being in the right place to so many things. I mean, I remember the crash, 2008-9. He actually introduced his clients to REO asset management companies that he cut deals with. He was like talking to them and negotiating and saying, hey, I got this giant group of agents all over the country, send them our way. And so we got in on One West Bank. We got in on DTS, which was the short sale company for Bank of America.
Yeah.
I did 42 short sales in 2012 because of our connections through Tom Ferry, and also door knocking them and calling them and doing the work. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but the connection was there. So, so, meeting the people and being in the ecosystem is really amazing.
It is. And I talk a lot about proximity and being around them. Like, that's huge. So you were exposed to those short sales. And it's interesting that was a big part of my world, because in 2009, I started my investment company. I was already buying and selling a lot of houses at that time. And then from probably 2009, maybe the end of 2008 until just recent, like we were involved in over 1,200 short sales. And we're seeing it pick up again right now. It's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. There's opportunity, like for investors, everywhere. It's going to be ridiculous. There's opportunity.
Not even just for investors, though. It's for everyone.
It's for everybody.
Yeah. If you're just a new agent getting in, surround yourself with people like you. You've been there already. You have no knowledge. You have, and this is the part that is interesting. A lot of the young people these days, I'm finding, they kind of poo-poo the old timers. That's a dangerous place to go, because history always repeats itself. And you better know somebody who lived through it.
You got it. It's so we get a lot of new folks that, are just getting licensed. Like they come in, they're like, oh, I see so-and-so on your team. They got to be making like $1 million a year. And like, I have those people on my team. But sometimes they come in, they forget the hard work part of it. And everybody wants to work smart. And I think I just put a reel out just recently about that, is talking about, I love working smart, but damn it, the hard work has to come alongside of it as well. And this is one profession that you need to work hard, in addition to having the operations and the systems and the working smart attitude. And
so, it will do it for you. The systems and processes, people get into the tech side of it and they get buried in building out the tech, and they're tanking their business because they're not doing the work that feeds into the tech side of it. So
I think that's something that you should maybe talk a little bit about, because you're teaching all these systems and processes, and you still need to have the other parts of the business as well. You have to. Even though I operationalized myself and used myself as the guinea pig in the original days, I mean, I was a door knocking and open house queen. I door knocked for 3 years straight, 3 days a week, 100 doors a day, 300 doors a week for 3 years straight. And I did open houses every weekend for 3 years straight. So it was not like I wasn't working when I was putting systems in place. Right. And so you have to do the work. And there's 5 areas an agent has to put themselves in for money making. And you know what they are. It's lead gen, lead follow-up, buyer showing appointments, listing appointments, and negotiations and price reductions. If they're in any other areas, they're probably going to lose money. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, who's going to set up the operations? This is why solo agents struggle right now.
because you can't do the pace of the consumer has like gone on steroids. They can get any information at their fingertips and they're doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're sleeping. And so what does that mean? It means that, like Tom says, the solo agent kind of world has ended and people go, no, they haven't. Well, hold on. You still need an admin. You still need somebody who's going to shuffle papers for you, right? So that is, now you're no longer a solo agent, because as a solo agent, that's what we always did. We did everything. And so now you operationalize it. How do you do that as a new agent? Well, you either join a team who has the systems in place and has the tech stack ready for you, and has the marketing and the all of the stuff ready for you to use, and you just go and sell. Okay. And there's huge value in that.
Yeah, people get caught up. They get so caught up in splits, and again, I can help anybody on this call or on this podcast get 100% right now. I can help you get a signing bonus. But if you sell 0, 1, 2, or 3 homes and you make 120% of the damn commission, you're losing your ass. You're out of the business, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a huge value. And again, I recommend go have that conversation with a team leader and go talk to the teammates and see the value that's coming alongside, because
it's interesting. I coach a team and I was coaching another gal in kind of the same market, which I don't do usually, but these people had really great relationship. And the gal that I coached, she had been in our team program. She had built a team. She had then imploded her team purposefully. Started going back and did her own thing, came back into coaching with me and said, okay, I want to build it again. And I go, okay, I'll take you on. We spent 12 months getting the right foundations in place as she worked and doing all that. And on her second to last of her 12-month contract call, I said, okay, what are you going to do? And she said, I hate this. I don't want to do this. And I said, I knew that, but I needed you to come to the realization yourself. And so what are you going to do? I'm going to go to so-and-so's team at 50%.
Yeah.
Now, this is a woman who produced big numbers, knew how it worked and everything, and said, I can make, and she was producing, 30, 40, 50 deals a year.
Yeah.
Okay, by herself as an agent.
Right.
She goes, I can go over there and use all of their services. Their tech stack is set up. Their admins are there. It's a right out of the box. And I have no problem with that split. And she will make take home net more than she would have now on 50% split.
Yeah.
Than she would have owning her own team. And that's the ego. She was smart enough to take her ego and put it in check, because it's the ego that causes people to go broke.
Again, we build teams. Sometimes they implode, whether we do it on our own or it just happens, or we don't have the right culture, or you let a cancer fester. Like it happens in the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see what those folks that end up leaving do, and they end up becoming a fraction of what they were on a good team. Exactly.
I was a little bit hesitant of how teams would end up coming to fruition, because I was in before they were really called teams. Yeah. And it's very interesting. And there is not one model. There is so many different models. And so, one of the challenges I see is that when you have a group of leaders and they're discussing teams, and this is how you should do it. And no, because there's so many factors underneath the surface. It's that iceberg where the top of the peak is really sexy and it's pretty, but you have no idea what's happening underneath.
Yeah.
And I always tell my clients when I'm coaching them, they've said, I want to be like that one. I want to be like that one. I go, hold on, you haven't even asked them the real questions yet. What's it costing them to do that? Do they own their own building or do they lease?
Yep.
I mean, what's their input every month? How much expenses are they causing? What's their lifestyle like? Are they a single person with no children and no responsibilities and they can do this 24/7? Or do they have 6 kids and take care of their parents,
Yeah.
because the dynamics are so different across the board. So nobody should ever compare themselves to someone else. Take the knowledge, but then go build your own, the way that fits you and how you're going to become profitable.
Most definitely. And like, I know a lot of people that want to go start their own brokerage, and they, like that's another word for like going broke, because they just don't know how to do it. And even so, when you do it, they don't understand the overhead that comes alongside of that.
No.
And we were privately held brokerage, very, very profitable. We became a team and went to a cloud-based brokerage, but we own our own buildings. And so you can do it that way too. And I think the big thing is that when I go to, like, I was in Team Plus a number of years ago. Jared Davis was my coach, incredible coach. Left Tom Ferry for a little bit, came back, had the coach, recently made a switch over to Kay as our coach. She's a killer, as we shared earlier. And she brings a lot of value to our team. But I think the big thing is that, sometimes the ego gets involved and we go, well, shit, like I have a very, very profitable team. Like, we're killing it here. But what I love in the Tom Ferry world, or even any type of coaching environment, and getting around people that are like building teams and producing and very profitable, is getting super curious. And there was times, Yvonne, when I definitely was like, shit, like this thing we have here is crazy profitable. I don't need anybody else's help. And then I said, you know what? Stop being a ding dong and get way more curious. And by doing that, it's been helping our teams grow and helping us, go next level every so many months. So it makes a big difference getting curious.
So big. And curiosity that's a great word for it. And, people go, I'll be 58 in September. And so I am one that will get in somebody's face that says, I'm too old to be techie. And, I'm like, really? Are you serious? You still have a brain? It's like, come on. So, and I'm curious about, like, I love streamlining, and it's why probably I leaned into operations, but the curiosity of what these companies are doing. The tech guys that are out there, they may not have ever sold a piece of real estate, but they are so smart. And so I was able to, many years ago, get in with and be able to communicate with the tech side of it, which was really interesting. So I'm a salesperson, but then I have this like side of me that I call myself the translator. I'm the translator between tech and real estate, because they do not talk the same language at all.
I mean, you are definitely very rare.
It is a little rare. It is, I think so. And I know enough to be dangerous, and I will tell everybody that. Okay. I've never written code. I don't know anything about it. I know the word write code. Okay. However, I know the curiosity I had was, okay, how can you make that work? Right. So recently I just introduced, remember Justin Benson?
Yes.
Our agency. Okay. I did the Zoom in. So I introduced him. I did a demo with Open to Close, Andrew Altman, and got to meet him, who is brilliant. And then Calvin Mergen at CTE. Okay. Brilliant guy, very similar to Brian Charlesworth at CSU. Like, these guys are just brilliant. Yes. And then Follow-Up Boss with 𝐥𝐢𝐤 and at 𝐦𝐿𝐵, and then Follow-Up Boss with Dan Corkill. I kind of have put them all together like as a connector. So it's very interesting when they start talking, because I'm literally out here going, at some point there will be a product that our industry will be able to use, and teams can use, and brokerages can use, and it'll all be in one. But it won't be like you have to have the guys from MIT to set it up. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so they just emailed me recently, and they're like, hey, we're going to get together where the information is going to feed from here to here and here. And I'm like, yes. So my curiosity has created that kind of network, which is really fun, because it's totally different than real estate. So, but having said that, the basis of my goal is that it benefits the real estate industry, the agents, as well as then the consumer. Because at the end of the day, customer experience with the consumer is number one. And whoever breaks that code wins.
I love it. So it's funny because you talked about some of you mentioned some big names in the industry, and we use a lot of those in our tech stack. But we probably disagree on a couple of them, and it's
Sure.
okay because
That's because there isn't one for one fit.
There you go. That's the big thing I think everybody should take away from it. Like there's different tech stacks out there. I think ours is the best because we understand it at a very, very high level, able to use it. And ultimately it's about helping our clients. So we just had a team meeting earlier today, and Yvonne, I was talking about, sometimes we get caught up in the number of calls we make or the number, and I'm like, guys, let's get more focused on begin with the end in mind, like ratified contracts and helping people sell homes. And like you have a fiduciary responsibility to your clients. They came to you off of either a big portal or one of our lead generation sources. They came to you for a reason, to buy or sell a home.
That's right.
And when it gets prolonged and drug out, we're not holding up our part of the bargain, right?
That's right.
Like, and it's not about selling and pushing something on someone. It's helping them achieve their goal. So you do a lot of helping your coaching clients do that, right? Like it's not just the tech stack, it's also the sales process.
The sales process. So everything has to lead back to the sales process. Okay. So if you are going to implement something in tech, you have to determine how is that going to generate return on that investment.
Yes.
And the investment isn't just the tech stack. It's the labor costs. Mm-hmm. It's the implementation time. It's the usage. It's everything. And then how many leads is it generating? What is it doing? Because not everything is a lead generation tech stack. Not everything, right?
Right.
So that's why, you sit there and you say, okay, I was just talking with one of my team leads before this week. And I said, you've got all these things set up. However, you can't move forward. You're stuck because you have to feed the machine now money. Well, it comes from the sales side. So what happens, what we see a lot of the times, what I see a lot is people go into building out the foundations of the tech stack and they forget about the sales. And then all of a sudden they come to a screeching halt because now they don't have any sales to feed the build.
Yeah, no revenue.
No revenue, no nothing. And then they have to go back into production. And because they took themselves out of production to set up a tech stack, they can't do it. So they have to change their mindset and say, okay, if you're not able to hire somebody to do that, you either go join a group or that already has it, or you have to wear multiple hats and you have to time block and you have to get it set up to where, hey, you're working at midnight working on tech. Mm-hmm. Because 9 to 5, you're prospecting and showing houses and taking listings and writing contracts. So that's called bootstrapping, right? So that's the part that's really interesting that people sometimes have a problem with. They don't make the connection. And it's very difficult to get them to understand the implementation of lead gen. So I always say leads are crack for realtors. Okay. You can buy leads on any street corner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anywhere. Okay. The key is that if you don't have 2 to 3 lead sources that are bringing in money that are like clockwork, you're probably not going to be able to set up the operations and everything else. You won't be able to hire the staff to help you and things like that. So you work on the sales first. It's always sales first. And so we do work with sales and scripting and dialoguing and that kind of thing. And what I've noticed over the last few years, it's very interesting that there hasn't been enough emphasis put on skill building. And because you didn't need any skills in the last 5 years of the market because it was doing this.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden it's like,
yeah.
My listing is staying on for a month and not selling in a week. What do I do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you have to have skills to get a price reduction. Because remember, that was one of those 5 areas of money-making areas that a realtor needs to be in. Negotiations.
And 2 years of not having to have that conversation. It's
no
like,
conversations.
How do I do this now?
A lot of people freaking out right now about that.
So there's a shift that's going on. I just call it a normalized market. I think there's always shifts within every market. Even during COVID, when it was, you were in California, we're in Pennsylvania, two of the most locked down, like
Yep.
crazy states going on.
I was actually in Idaho during that because
Were
of
you?
that reason.
Okay, so you said, heck with that. Very good.
Yeah.
I'll go do some business in Idaho. Well, we weren't as fortunate here.
I know.
but-
Pennsylvania was hard.
New York, Hawaii,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, California, just craziness.
So
And
what'd you do? What'd you do during that time? How'd you shift?
I appreciate you asking. So it was very interesting. So I own the building and my wife is an accountant. So we had this, pretty big building. It was only the two of us allowed to be here. And Sarah was ready to probably lose her husband staying at home because, everybody was remote. So she said, can you guys just hire me on the accounting side so I can actually come in? So we hired her on the accounting side to come in and, be here. But we built out our digital marketing studio. It's not as nice as it is right now, but I was doing Mindset Matters and meeting with our teams twice a day. So 9:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. I knew after that meeting and 4:30 and that night until the morning is when this thing got really screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked on mindset. And I got to tell you, I was working between 120 hours a week. Our team was still doing 30 to 40 transactions a month because most people in Pennsylvania, realtors, they sell furloughed and at least half of them are out of the business now because of that. Then we had that huge influx of everybody wanting to become a real estate agent, Groupon, hey, I'm going to become a realtor. So we had a ton of influx, some really great people, but some people that probably just shouldn't be in the game, right? So we spent all that time, energy, and effort just working on lids, and we built this Mindset Matters things. I would bring people in from US and Canada and helping people with the lid. And here's the sad part, the energy and effort, the ATP that I was spending on trying to keep people from, I'll get real, taking their own daggone life. It was bad because it was very brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people that I cared for and loved, but my gosh, they took so much energy from Jack, and that I wasn't able to give it to my family.
Right.
Because you can only give so much. You're working 120 hours a week, and it took a toll. So I had to make a decision that there's probably some people I just don't need in my life any longer, the energy vampires, and I made that decision to, part ways with a few folks.
No, and you can only help, you can only help those who want to help themselves.
Yeah.
And we have that same issue in coaching. A lot of the time we have a saying, you can't want it more than they do.
Yeah.
And if you're a coach and you learn that, through what you were doing, especially mindset coaching, it's it's draining, so that's why I'm called the no bullshit coach, because it's I'm don't go there. Everybody's got their story.
Yeah.
The one thing that I know is a constant: if you just go to work and you make money and you hustle, guess what? A lot of other problems in your personal world go away. And so you've got to have some grit, especially right now as the shift's happening. I mean, NAR said, 40% of the realtors in the US haven't closed a deal this year so far? I mean, that's a lot.
It makes me just wonder what the hell's really going on here, because my teams are,
I know
there's some domination going on, right? This is the biggest opportunity to gain market share if you truly put in the energy and effort, build the skills, and keep this lid right, because
that's exactly right.
And just stay away from the news. I haven't watched the news in probably 8 weeks now. I don't even know who our president is. That's how. It's a beautiful thing.
I'm not going to comment on that because I have a really snide comment to make, but I won't. I'm not going to do it. You can't bait me.
Anyway,
I do watch the news. I watch the news because it's important to know globally what's happening, especially because now we're a global real estate world, and here's what I know about people when they watch the news. They're watching the wrong news. They should be watching the investment news. They should be watching, what are treasury bonds doing, and what is the interest rates going to do, and why is that not connected? And because there's lack of knowledge in the historic numbers of how things work. that the consumer doesn't have either. And that's why Keeping Current matters. I love their stuff.
So that's where I get my news.
Yeah, exactly.
I listen to that. And Yvonne, during COVID, like, or maybe it's still going on, I have no idea. But when the lockdown started happening, I just listened to Tom and Keeping Current Matters, and I was getting my info and I was bringing it to our team, and just understanding, they said it was going to be like a 6-week lockdown. I said, plan on 3-4 months. We're gonna plan for 3 or 4 months.
You guys went 2 years or something.
It was nuts, but we had the mindset just to like endure and do the things necessary, do all the remote showings.
Yeah. So this
when we opened up, because Tom was calling it loading the cannons, and we loaded the mother effing cannons like crazy. When it opened up in Pennsylvania and Maryland, our team went nuts. We were doing like 30 during COVID, and most people weren't doing any. And then we were doing like close to 80 a month.
Yep.
Stupid volume with not a big team.
Yep.
It was crazy.
It's really cool because it was interesting. I didn't realize how kind of reclusive I am until COVID happened.
Yeah.
Because I've worked from home for a long time in both states, and I didn't have a lot of change happen. Okay. So it's like, I work out at home. I like hang out at my house. I like my house. It's all good. Right. But what's interesting is Tom said, reached out to the coaches and said, who's been doing virtual listing presentations? And I went, well, I have for about 5 years. And he's like, we're on tomorrow, Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Now, think about this. We had never gone live remotely on Facebook in a private group. So for about 2.5 hours that night, I was Googling, figuring out how to do it. Even his tech staff were like, I don't think we can do it. And I'm like, no, I got this. Come on, we'll practice in my private group over here.
Yeah.
So I practiced that morning, and then we got in and hooked it up. I'm sitting at my dining room table. Tom's in his house, and we did the virtual listing presentation. It was the very first event of Pivot, basically. We didn't even have Pivot set up yet. And so, so that launched. And then the next thing I knew, I had my own listings going, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to do virtual open houses. They were better open houses than doing live, in my opinion, because people got to see more stuff. Some of this stuff now, I don't even know why people aren't doing it. I still do virtual listings because I'm in Idaho and my partner's in California.
Yeah.
And we bring everybody on the same screen, and the clients love it. And they get more information. And, I don't think I've even been at like the last 12 listings I've taken. I've never seen the house. Okay. That's why even as a small realtor in size, anybody can do it. Right. And so it's just here. It's flip the script in your brain. Yeah. Right. And so we needed to flip scripts in a lot of brains, and the people that paid attention won. And that was exciting. It was really exciting.
And Yvonne, I actually remember watching that because I said, what else am I going to do? We live on a farm, and I'm like, I can keep cutting down trees or just spend 120 hours at the office. But I remember listening to the Pivot and that very first one. And that's actually, I think I knew of your name, but that's probably where I got exposed to Yvonne. And then you were involved in a lot of those different Pivot events, I believe, correct? I
did quite a few. And then we did some This Week in Housing with David Childers and stuff like that. Tom invited me on. Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and now there's just more of that happening, so podcasts like you were on and things like that. But people just need to, you have to share the experience. And I don't know, real estate is an interesting thing. It's funny because my dad always used to say, he was an old Italian guy. And he used to say, little one, because I was the youngest of 4.
Okay.
Little one, never chase the money. You'll never find it. And I'd go, okay, what's that mean? Right. Well, then as I got older, I knew what it meant. It's like he was saying, go do something that you love doing, that you're not working when you're doing it. you're passionate about it, but he
Yeah.
didn't have those, he didn't have that language, you know. He barely got out of high school at 19. He was a contractor. He was a cabinet builder, right? But he turned into a general contractor. And so he just knew if you're passionate about something, you just do it. And real estate, I always said, I'm never getting into real estate. My brother was a realtor broker. My dad was a builder. You know, I'm never doing it. Well, look what happened, right? So fast forward 30 plus years. And it's very interesting because it's been a really good industry for me. And then I met my husband through it. And we, you know, our world is real estate, and how you can create wealth that way. If people just stop overthinking it.
Mm.
It's a super simple industry. Help others get what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's an old saying, right? And
It's really simple.
It's what you do, you know, helping others get what they want. I say I build businesses now. People go, you know, are you a realtor? Are you a coach? What are you? And I go, I help others build businesses. So when I'm coaching and during a week, it's like I have 22 clients. And so I'm literally mentally inside 22 different businesses every week.
Hmm.
And that's a very interesting place to be. So, because they're very different.
You get to see it all. You get to see the good, bad, and ugly, right?
Yeah. And sometimes, like you said, you can help them, but if their head isn't right,
yeah,
if their ego is too big, if they don't care about others, they're gonna struggle.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And they might look
sometimes
successful.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like a timing issue. Like it's like you got to be ready for it too.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's times when people are very coachable, but there's something else going on in their life and they're just not there yet. And I definitely have had that in my life.
Absolutely.
And I was ready to come back. Like I left and I was ready to come back.
That's funny you say that because you know, I'm a Team Plus coach, and I think I've quit coaching Team Plus 3 times. And because there's something, I'm not a believer in keep bucking your head against the wall. It's like, wait, step back, go get right with yourself, with your head.
Yeah.
You know, do what you need to do for you, and then come back in so you're healthy. Some people just keep running and running and running. It's not healthy. It's just not healthy. And at this point in my life, I'm more about, you know, my life being, you don't have to be ultra rich to run a really great life. And that's what I'm excited about doing now, as, you know, go into the second half of your life. You know, it's like,
That's right.
Yeah. If you go by 100 years.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your age. I would, maybe you did. I don't know.
I did.
I'm picking. So it's kind of funny. Like I always say, I'm going to live to be 140. So when I hit 70, that's when I go buy my Corvette and have my midlife crisis. So right. you're not even there yet.
No,
like
no, you know,
a long way to go.
You know, we've always surrounded ourselves with, it's interesting because we have, my husband and we have a tagline: no kids, no pets, no plants, no fish. Right. So I just say I can't keep anything else alive but myself and my husband. But it's funny because I look at that and I go, yeah, we don't have any of that. Right. So we always ended up hanging out with older people. And so our crowd is older, always has been, even when we were in our 30s. And so it's very interesting because they're established. They've got some wisdom, you know, their humor is hilarious. It's different. Yeah. And so, you know, and they're fun. And that's the whole thing. So I always tell John, I said, you know, we're going to have to get some younger friends because we're turning into the old people that need some younger friends that hang out with old people. So
you can help that. You can provide that wisdom to those youngsters that come in.
Right. Exactly.
and being around youth really is nice too. Like a lot of, I think everybody on my team is probably
younger than you.
Way. It does keep me young. I love it. Like I got to keep up with these knuckleheads. Yeah.
I don't feel my age. You know, I have my aches and pains. I wore a brace from my neck to my hips when I was 14 to 16 for scoliosis.
Yeah.
And it's probably where I got my grip from because the brace was started here and it was hard leather. It was a bar down the front, 2 down the back. And I would go into the classroom, you know, and that's 9th grade and the last year of junior high, the first year of high school.
Oh my.
And I'd go in the classroom and I'd sit down. You know how the desks were attached to the chair? And so I'd sit down. Well, the bottom of the brace, the bottom part would catch on the back of the seat and it would jam it up into my chin. Oh, of course, everybody's watching, right? And so I sat there and I could, at that point, at 14, 15 years old, I figured out I could cry and be like, wander off into the corner, or I could laugh and laugh at myself.
Yeah.
And I laughed. And so I'd laugh. And I think that's kind of the start of where I got the grit enough to say, I don't really give a shit what you think about me.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to walk through life and I'm going to laugh. And that's just it. Because, you know, when you're teased or when you're looked at or stared at as a youth, you can go either way.
Oh,
yeah.
You got that at such an early age. I share with people in my world that I allowed in my movie of the Jack Lehr life, I allowed all these non-main characters so much credibility. And you experienced that at age 14 to 16 at and you said, F everybody else, because
yes, I did.
If you have a problem with me, that's your problem, not mine.
Yeah.
Right.
What's interesting though is yes, I had that underneath that attitude, which I probably didn't show until I got older. But it's funny because my sister, who is 10 years older than me, she would be with me. And so people would ask me in the mall, you know, what happened to you? And she would get super defensive. And she would say things like, she was in a 9-car pileup and she almost died. And I'm like, why did you say that? You know? And she goes, well, why do they ask that? That's so rude. And I go, because they don't know. And here I am, 15, 16 years old. And I'm like educating. So I was like, well, I have scoliosis and 8 out of 10 girls have it. And it's a curvature of the spine. And I'm wearing the brace to keep it. And I go into the walking dictionary about scoliosis. And so I'm thinking, okay, that was another lead in to where I'm at now. You know, so, I mean, I would go meet afterwards. People would tell like other parents, have Yvonne talk to your kid. And so I would go meet with the kids. I was 17, 18 years old at the time. And I would go meet with the kids and tell them, hey, it's not a big deal. You'll get, you know, through that if you got to do the brace, because they told me I needed the surgery and I avoided the surgery.
Because of the brace. Yeah.
Because of the brace. I said, I'll take the brace for 2.5 years. I mean, I cried every night when I went to bed, you know, but that wasn't shown outwardly. So, you know, so now I go like this. Oh, you don't like me? Oh, you don't like what I just said? Okay. Yeah. You know,
I know what you want to do. Yeah. And the thing was, that was before it was cool. And Joan, I think it was Joan Cusack in 16 Candles wore that brace when she was trying to drink some water, right?
Yeah, it was. Oh, yes, and it was the other girl. There was another one in what was it? House Mom, or with the great one. And yes, and I remember that one too. In fact, when I saw it, I think it was Demi Moore's daughter that played the one that had the brace in that movie. So yeah, so funny. But yeah, that was me.
Oh my goodness. Well, so I want to, there's so many questions that I wanted to ask you, but I think we're going to wrap up here. I'd love to have you back some other time, Yvonne, and certainly on our 1737 mastermind. But like one last question. Somebody is a solo agent right now, and they're saying, you know what? I'm hearing everybody talk about teams. Maybe I don't want to join a team, but maybe I want to lead a team. What advice would you give to them?
Solo agent. If they don't want to join a team, but they want to lead a team.
Yeah, maybe they have some experience, a little bit of experience, and they're like, you know what? I think I can lead a team.
Yeah, they need to go get guidance from it. They need to be open that it's not just all rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah.
It's not just all, I'm going to get a bunch of other people to make money for me.
Yeah. That
isn't what it is. It's leadership. And if you have no leadership skills, you better go learn leadership skills from someone else. And that is really lacking in most realtors because we're salespeople. We're not managers or leaders per se.
And most aren't good business.
No, they're not
just
good
like
business
doctors and lawyers, not good business people. Most realtors are not. They
Right.
don't understand that. They got to
I
understand.
am a full-blown person who believes in apprenticeship and learning from other people, or connect yourself with somebody that is your mentor. That's going to, it doesn't need to be a coach or whatever, but it needs to be a mentor. Somebody that's going to, that you can go to and say, hey, I have this problem, right? Like if I was in Pennsylvania, and this is not a plug for you.
Yeah.
I know enough about you, and there's 25 others that I know like you. Okay. If I was in those areas, that's where I would go. I would be like, hey, can you mentor me on this? How should I do this? Because see, what I know about people like you and many others that I coach and that are in our ecosystem that I've met in the world, you're okay with somebody becoming successful and leaving you.
Mm-hmm.
See, that is the one thing that most people need to get over when they hire people under them. You should be okay with somebody becoming successful and leaving you, because that is the highest compliment that you can get. And one of I'll leave you with this. One of the lenders I used to call on when I was in title, he was the president of the bank. He wasn't a lender. He was the president of the savings and loan. Okay. And so I would go in and chat with him, and I said, hey, your loan officer is killing it. And he says, I know. He goes, I had this competition with her that I wanted her to make more per month than my salary. And I went, interesting. He said, do you know why? And I said, no. He says, because if she's successful, it makes me look great. Right. And so I learned that years and years ago. I was like 22 years old. And that's when I said, okay, that's leadership. You want others to be successful. So that's what I do with coaching. I know it's what you do with people that come under you, and you're okay if they leave you as successful people.
It might be a little bit hurtful at the moment, but certainly you understand that that's part of the growth journey that they're on.
Exactly. And if you can do a lot of them, not all of them will leave you. A lot of them will stay with you.
Yeah.
You have to boot them out the door. They're like your kid,
I love it.
So.
Well, Yvonne, I'm super grateful that you joined us here today on the Lehr.
Thank you for having me.
It's certainly a pleasure. Love to have you back, as I stated before, and also join our 1737 mastermind sometime, maybe even really, really soon. We shared when this is dropping, so I'll do some promos out there. Hey, so if you found value in today's the Lehr podcast here with Yvonne Arnold, I ask you to share, like, subscribe, be a part of our world. Again, super grateful that I got the opportunity to have Yvonne Arnold here today. Make your day great.